Assalamu alaikum and happy Friday to everyone out there. I am so excited to be with you today as we host another conference for, of course, Muslim History Month. May is rapidly coming to an end, and I am so glad to be part of this month, and I'm so excited for our guest today, and I hope that you are too. So today's topic is modest fashion and design, modesty and style in the modern era. And if I love talking about anything, it's fashion because I love clothes. So I'm really excited for our guest speaker today, Rabia Z. She is known as the first lady of modest fashion. Rabia Z is an award-winning fashion entrepreneur and sustainable designer, pioneering modest fashion globally in a $402 billion industry. She has an MBA in leadership, innovation, and consulting. Rabia Z mentors professionals to be world-class leaders, excelling in technology and in leadership. A thought leader and speaker, she inspires women globally with her brand thriving in 80 plus countries. So without further ado, please welcome Rabia Z. Good morning or afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon from Dubai. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Ashley? Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. We were cutting off a bit. I hope we don't have too many interruptions, inshallah.
Me too. I know. I'm really hoping that my connection will stay strong. Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I'm so excited to talk to you. So I'd like to dive right in and learn from you. Can you tell us about the early days of the modest fashion industry and how you came to coin the term modest fashion?
Yes, Ashley, that's a long story. Thank you again, first of all, for having me. Assalamu alaikum to everyone that have tuned in live. I appreciate you being here. It's really an honor to be a part of the Muslim History Month, alhamdulillah. And I'm very excited to do this with you, Ashley. It's a pleasure to meet you. So modest fashion, gosh, it wasn't even a thing when I started. It was... So we coined the term much later than when I first started. So my journey, my background, in my teens, I went to a fashion school in New York, and I lived that life of, I interned at Valentino. I worked for a stylist there. I was styling. It was like a full-on mainstream fashion scene. And then, alhamdulillah, I had a beautiful spiritual awakening. And when I moved from California, I, alhamdulillah, found peace and tranquility in my being, and I'm ready to wear hijab. I hope we're still on. I see we're buffering here.
Yes,
but,
I can still hear you.
You can hear me. So, okay, I think we got cut off. So I won't stop, then I'll just go on. So alhamdulillah, as I started my young hijabi, new hijabi journey, sadly it was short-lived because unfortunately 9/11 happened, and it was during that time. So just if we were to just rewind just a bit, so understanding my fashion background, first of all, when transitioning into hijab and wanting to dress modestly in the year 2001 was a huge challenge. I had a bit of a shock when I would go to the malls to realize that there's like not a single brand, not a single store that catered to the needs of women like myself that wanted to dress modestly, wanted to wear everyday modern clothing, but wanted to stay covered and modest. There were none. In 2001, we didn't have the trends that we have today. Everything was short and tight, and you can just imagine. So first of all, as a fashionista, it was a big shock for me to realize that. So I just stuck wearing abayas from Dubai that my mom would send me. But that was short-lived because the 9/11 happened, unfortunately. So subhanallah, during that time, a lot of people around me, friends, families, the community, just out of safety, even started removing their hijab. And I too was told by my parents to do so. But I just refused that. So long story short, I thought I have a creative background. I mean, I got stubborn because I did experience hate crime. So I thought, I want to do something about it. And so I did. And alhamdulillah, I was fortunate that my mom had her production unit, tailoring production unit in Dubai. So I was lucky that I had that access. And so I just started really small. First, it was just helping myself. And at the time, I was like helping style my friends. I would do styling, a bit of personal shopping and whatnot, just to, do tasteful layering, because, layering can get very challenging, especially back in those days. So I started that way, and then I started my own from my grandfather's garage. Alhamdulillah, I was able to set up, once the demand grew, I was able to set up a small, like e-commerce, and I would produce all the like very sort of need of the hour, good quality, breathable basics to wear just to get out of the house and feel, comfortable in a shared space, and not those days, look too like in a black abaya. The kind of attention you get is what I was trying to sort of avoid and divert. And at the same time, I used the universal language of fashion to, alhamdulillah, break some stereotypes and stuff. And subhanallah, it was another eye opener for me, because I realized that, through fashion you can actually speak a different lingo that is a bit more open, people would be more open to. So, mixing, matching, layering, and bringing color into basic everyday clothing, and creating them with good quality. Alhamdulillah, it became a dialogue. Like if we were out together, like friends and family, non-Muslims would stop, like women were interested. They would ask, what is this called? What are you wearing? It's so interesting. Or it's like, the colors are so beautiful. So alhamdulillah, I realized that it opened up a dialogue. And really that is how like my entire brand started, and my business ethos changed, because I had a fashion background, a fashion design background, and I always thought that I had found my calling until this happened, and I realized that no, that's not what my calling was. That this is definitely much more needed. And really, Ashley, I started small, like I said, and at the time we didn't even call it modest fashion. Yes, a lot of people called it Islamic fashion, but to me, I didn't think that term was even correct, because my vision was much broader, much bigger, and again, because of my mainstream fashion background, I really wanted to sort of challenge the norm and the stereotype, and I also wanted fashion, the actual, like, the mainstream industry, to open itself up to women like myself. And so it's not just us creating stuff for us, but I wanted to, be a bit more vocal, and more sort of, like I said, challenge mainstream to have a look, to pay closer attention to women like myself, and cater to our needs as well, so that we can comfortably just go into our local malls and be able to find things to wear for every day. So in a nutshell, that's sort of how the concept began. And my tagline from that time was Rabia Z, where modesty is always in style. Wasn't just a tagline, it's something that, it's like something I lived by, and something till today we advocate, and alhamdulillah. So, fast forward, we were doing well online as an e-commerce platform. Again, we had a lot of firsts under our belt, alhamdulillah, because back in the day, there were no women's modest fashion, women's ready to wear. Not even abayas were not ready to wear those days. So, alhamdulillah, having done that, what opened my eyes was, aside from the huge gap in the mainstream market and in the market in general, in the fashion industry, what opened my eyes was that that there was a need for community building. And because women from all walks of life would be emailing me, back in the day where there was no social media, we just had a website and a little like blog, an email that people could just write to us directly. And subhanallah, that was another huge realization for me. I didn't realize that there were so many other women like myself that were struggling, and everyone's struggles were different. So there were women that struggled with wearing the hijab in the first place. There were others that wore hijab but struggled with self-esteem, struggled with finding a job as a hijabi. And then it got really personal too, with the self-esteem and personal issues and marriage and whatnot. Like, it was, subhanallah, it was a lot. And I realized that, wow, that just something this small that you take for granted, just dressing every day, right? Like, if you're not a hijab, you don't think twice, really, like, other than if you're super fashionista, and just made me realize that, subhanallah, there's so many women out there that are struggling in so many ways, and fashion to be a struggle was not something that I understood or I accepted, so I was like, no, inshallah, we're going to tackle this together. I'm going to do it, all of us together. And alhamdulillah, so we opened up the site to feedback from people, which was great, because then it really made me and the team tailor-made for women. So like, they needed workwear, for example, or they just missed wearing denim that was modest, or so whatever trend of the hour that they were looking for. So alhamdulillah, we were able to cater to more sort of specific, and it felt good to be able to do that directly. And again, this is way well before social media. Please feel free to stop me at any point, because I can go on. But to come full circle into the term coining modest fashion, years later, when I moved back home, Dubai is home, so I moved back home from US to Dubai. I felt like, okay, we had done what we did. I felt like it wasn't enough, and I felt like mainstream is still not really paying attention, and there's still a huge void. And so I decided to go, because as a designer, the mainstream again. And so I knew that, okay, the way to maybe get better attention was to sort of get into the mainstream fashion week and show that, look, this is today's Muslim woman, and this is what she can look like, and this is what she dance. And so we and to build a designer modest brand was the other thing. So we said, we have to do, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, because it's a fact of fashion weeks and fashion, the scene is a Western scene. So we thought we can sort of leverage the best of it and show our point of view across in a more global way. And so that's what I did. We went back and reestablished, rebranded, and started going into mainstream runways. And then alhamdulillah, we got a lot of, again, accolades, and we won awards and whatnot. And then it was when the actual global Islamic economic report came out many years later. It was then they were also using the word Islamic fashion, and then I got called in for a roundtable discussion from my government and Dinar Standard and Reuters at the time, and we had a roundtable discussion in Turin, and I went in as a speaker, and then they asked me to talk about what did they think that I thought, what in my expertise and my view, what was the better term. So I said, in order for it to be more inclusive, because for me, again, the idea was to really promote modesty into the fashion scene, because it didn't exist, because in Western and mainstream fashion, modesty, fashion is just showing skin, because I've been thrown that at my face so many times in so many different places and events in my life as a designer. So I said, no, we need to keep it inclusive, and we need to make this not just trend, but really like sort of take over a big segment of the industry. And alhamdulillah, then they all, and then we the term modest fashion, which I kept using, alhamdulillah, got officially recognized. Yeah. So in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was definitely interested in hearing that part. And that's really amazing, all the things that you've done and accomplished. It's always really inspiring when you hear someone talk about, I saw this problem and I said, we got to fix it, right? And that's what you did. And you said, I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
and you took it on. Mashallah, it's amazing. And I loved what you said when you said, oh my gosh, what word did you use when you're talking about layering? I literally had it in my head. Tasteful layering.
Tasteful
Yes,
layering.
tasteful layering. I love that. Yes, because layering is not always easy and it doesn't always look, clean
No.
and put together. So I love that you
That's right.
said that. So I want to know, so obviously this has been happening over time and it happened years ago. You started years ago. So how has modest fashion evolved over the years? Are there any trends or changes that stand out to you? Consumer preferences shifted within modest fashion?
100%, I would say, because, mashallah, the population is growing. Alhamdulillah, Muslims, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Alhamdulillah, the modern Muslim woman is very naturally fashion savvy. I think it has a lot to do with social media, obviously, and the reach that social media has and the influence that it has. So that has, I would say, absolutely has influenced it very much so. It's made it so accessible, right? Fashion is so accessible. Looking at styles and trends is so much more accessible now versus in the past, where people had to invest in trend books or fashion magazines. But now that's not the case. So certainly that has impacted, I would say, taste, styles, and demand. And certainly demand has grown because there are a lot of brands out there. There are a lot of outlets. There are a lot of multi-brand e-commerce platforms. And even now, when you go to your local mall, especially in our region, the biggest names in the industry all cater, like all have some element of modesty into their collections, which alhamdulillah, it's great. Especially, I would say the trend of what they call a Ramadan collection. Um, it's, it's pretty cool when you go into the malls and you see every single brand that in the world that's here. For example, all their windows are all Ramadan edit, Ramadan collection. So subhanallah, that's the power of demand. And social media, like I said, and our answers and everyone has definitely helped shape that. So I love it. I love it. Like for us as a brand, we way back like in 2008, we almost reached a major collaboration with brands like Adidas, and in 2009 with H&M. And sadly, both were, once it reached HQ, both were turned down. And I knew why at the time. They wouldn't say, but I knew why. But it's pretty cool that now when you go, you see them all like, having modest edits, Ramadan collections. I mean, hijab, sportswear, athleisure, that's modest. So yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, there's still a long ways to go, honestly, but yeah,
I
it's good. It's
agree. I
going
think I think about it a lot when I travel,
Mm.
especially when I'm going somewhere that's very westernized. I think,
Mm.
if for some reason something happens and I need a different hijab, a new hijab or whatever, I can't just go into a store and get it. If I'm in North America or like Europe, there's not really a lot of options. You can't just walk into any store and find a hijab. And so I think about that back in my mind all the time. But
Right.
I think social media, you're right, has played such a huge role. And
Yeah.
so how do you think, like influencers and content creators and online communities have had an impact in, maybe promoting modest fashion or changing it or, just kind of what the effect has been?
Um, it's a bit of a, I want to say catch-22, but it is. I'd say
Mm,
overall, the positive aspect, as I said earlier, was the fact that the awareness, the global awareness. Um, I would say the influencers for sure had a big role to play in that. Um, why I say catch is, unfortunately, we've also had a lot of early influencers that have also sort of, changed routes and stopped modesty altogether, which it's sad. So
yeah,
subhanallah,
it's
that's
unfortunate.
the thing with the that's the thing with social media. It's not honestly my favorite thing in the world, and you can see that from my pages. I'm barely active. I just for the sake of the brand, but I kind of preferred in our time we had actual media. So alhamdulillah, like our brand has amazing media value, but actual media, like actual print and digital too, but a lot of print and TV and the what do you call it? Traditional media. I personally still prefer that. I mean, social media is an amazing marketing tool. You just have to use it in the right way and not get too carried away. So sadly, you can get carried away, and that's what's happened to sadly a lot of people. But alhamdulillah, at the same time, like I said, one of the main reasons why our industry has boomed in terms of visibility and awareness. Social media has a lot to do with that. So it's got its good and bad.
For sure. I definitely agree with you. I was thinking about it yesterday and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I'm like, sometimes I think about giving up Instagram and social media, and then I think, you know what? But
Yeah,
I love it so much, and so the first thought I had was, I love sharing my outfits. I would miss it, but at the same time, I just
yeah,
feel like sometimes, it's just like there's a positive and there's a negative, and it can be
yeah,
fun and it can be very useful, but it can also be very like
yeah,
daunting and heavy on social
yeah,
media, and so I totally get where you're coming from. So,
true.
what are some trends that you're seeing in modest fashion from maybe like some changes that you've seen from when you started versus now? What do those trends look like, and where do you see the future of modest fashion heading?
Um, it's like some part of the future is now because I remember I actually did co-author a few years of the Global Islamic Economy Report on the modest and lifestyle segment, and then I had said, athleisure is going to be a big thing, and this is many years ago, and subhanallah, of course, nobody thought COVID would happen and all that, but certainly athleisure became pretty huge. I would say that I see that there's still a lot of lack in innovation and fabric technology. So I feel that that would be sort of next frontier, and it's slightly happening, but not in our industry. It's happening, but not in our industry as yet.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that we would really truly benefit a whole lot from it, especially um, technical fabrics that are cooling for hijaba, and these are again stuff we had already started many years ago, but it requires a lot of investment. It requires a whole lot of proper planning and investment. So if you don't have that, it is challenging for smaller brands to get into that. But I would say another thing that has been core to us, and we never used it loosely, which people use for marketing, is sustainability. And I think as Muslims and as consumers, consumers, we have to be, you know, it's almost like, I want to say it shouldn't even be a question anymore. It should uh, absolutely demand that we should advocate and we should really go more into sustainable brands and support sustainable brands. And you know, because we're talking about climate change, we're talking about affecting earth, so the earth is an amana to us as well. So so you know, I see that some labels and some e-commerce or some retailers have started, but it's just, I feel everyone's sort of still doing it as a marketing thing. But inshallah, as fast fashion is starting to go into that route, which is great because they're the number one pollutants of climate anyway, of sadly, of Earth anyway. So inshallah, these are areas that I do see attraction. Inshallah, I see it to rise. So and the other thing is perhaps a, you know, new frontier of Muslim designers designing for, you know, Western brands. So yeah,
Yes.
those are things that at least I'm hoping to see, and I'm, you know, sort of predicting that inshallah it's headed out.
Yes, you brought up some really good points. I'm glad you brought up sustainability because I hadn't even really thought of that. But I've seen where some brands, you know, they claim to be sustainable, or certain products of theirs, you know, are made of recycled materials or things like this. And I saw one company was called out online because the tag that they used was recycled material. It wasn't the clothes itself. And so I was just really shocked by that, you know, like we've only got one planet, we have to take care of it. And, you know, I
That's
know
right.
that a lot of clothes get, you know, wasted. A lot of people, sometimes they buy stuff, they don't even wear it, and then eventually they just, you know, toss it. So I have seen a lot of people start to kind of, you know, share like their pre-loved clothing, you know, stuff that they've barely
Yes.
worn, you know, it gets resold and things like that. So, and a lot of people are into thrifting. So that's, I think, helpful in a
Yeah.
way.
Absolutely. Pre-loved is the other thing that I didn't mention, but I definitely see a huge, inshallah, you know, bigger market of that as well. Yeah, it was called thrifting and they made it sound like, you know,
Yeah,
negative, but no, if you, I'm a believer of buying good quality. So less is more, definitely buy less, but better stuff. Then I certainly I'm not in that fast fashion culture. I cannot, you know, I'm not going to take names, but there are some huge names right now that people are just addicted to shopping there. I just cannot, I can't, because and I've seen how it just all goes straight into the trash, and we know where that leads to.
exactly.
So and you know, alhamdulillah, really I mean, it does have a lot to do with the consumer as well. Like the consumer need to also appreciate. There are brands, there are Muslim brands, there are modest brands that are trying to, you know, offer better quality, but perhaps the price is a bit higher. So the consumer wants, sort of still wants cheap and cheerful. So you know, we need. Both sides need to really, you know, work in some sort of a compromise. And without the consumer, you know, the brands are not going to get the support that they need to be able to offer quality and offer competitive pricing. So I understand with smaller businesses, it's much harder because, you know, we also, I'm also a consultant. I'm a strategy management consultant, and I consult SMEs and startups. And I also, we also have a mentorship program, alhamdulillah, that does very well through our Modest Fashion Academy. So through our mentorship program, we've launched and relaunched, rebranded, helped a lot of young like startup labels, alhamdulillah. And you know, this is always an area where there's some sort of debate and argument, because you know, at the end of the day, for a young label, it is the price factor is everything. And you know, even wanting to go full sustainable is much harder as a young brand. So I get that, but there are ways. It's not hard at all. For example, back in 2019 when Modernisa, the largest retailer, modest fashion retailer in the world, when they approached me to do a collaboration collection, I challenged them and I said, I'll only do it if we do it sustainable, at least, if not 100%, but I'd want 70, 75% sustainable. They said it's impossible. And I just dived in and went hands-on myself. I went and I sourced the fabrics myself. I sat with factories myself. And alhamdulillah, at the end, I was able to produce, which even shocked them as a team, as a large company, that, oh, like you can do things and keep offer a sustainable collection within a price point that's still reasonable. So yeah, it's doable. You just have to know how to do it.
I actually think I have a hijab from the collection you're talking about.
Okay.
I saw it one day. I was looking at the tag, and it's got your name on it.
Alhamdulillah.
One of my favorite hijabs. And correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of founded the Jersey hijab, did you not?
Yes, alhamdulillah, we are the creators of the original Jersey hijab way back before it was a thing. And alhamdulillah, got recognition in the museum as well. A few with the Smithsonian and with went to Germany, went to a few different places. But alhamdulillah, yeah, we got recognized as the creators of it. So yeah, it's one of the few, but we have alhamdulillah a lot of firsts like that. And really it's about creating solutions, really. It's
Right.
if you treat your brand and your business as a value add, something to make a difference, and not just a fickle fashion. You can get creative, and you will get creative and come up with solutions. So yeah, it's a matter of perspective. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Mashallah. Well, I have to personally thank you because I wear jersey hijabs like 98% of the time. Otherwise, I might wear a chiffon, but for me, chiffon is just not as comfortable. I think it's very like sleek looking and more like maybe professional, but jersey, I don't have to worry about it.
That's right. Exactly. Penless. We call it penless hijab for
Yeah,
a reason. And
exactly.
alhamdulillah.
It's been my number one fabric since day one.
I'm happy to hear it. The whole idea of creating it, honestly, Ashley, was, like I said before, hijab. Like I was, as much as I was into fashion, I was a very simple girl. Like I love, t-shirts and whatnot. So for me, that feeling of wearing a t-shirt, right, is what
Yes.
I wanted to create, but for the head. Yeah.
Right.
And during a time when, in the early 2000s, it was all like the reign of the polyester square hijab. So we just had to challenge that and be like, look, there's better options. But yeah,
Exactly.
alhamdulillah, shukr, alhamdulillah.
That's amazing. So I know you help young entrepreneurs and you help businesses. So what advice would you give to aspiring designers and entrepreneurs who are looking to enter the modest fashion industry now?
I'm just gonna write as well. So there's a lot. Say have an authentic point of view. And when I say authentic, I mean like authentic. Don't go with, this is the trend and this is what's happening and this is what, No, have a point of view. I always say that because even in our mentorship program, a lot of my mentees go from they start on vision and then they end up with something else, only because it's like you need someone to sort of help them explore and help them sort of bring out the hidden things, talents that they have. And alhamdulillah, we were able to do that. So what's beautiful, which I love, and then when I advise about authenticity, is exactly that. It takes a bit of a work, but some due diligence. You can absolutely have a voice. Don't think that, no, you know what, I'm not that creative and I just have to go with what the trends are and just copy paste what's happening. No, I like, no. So I would say, be clear, have an authentic voice, know who is your woman that you're designing or you're creating for. And you don't always have to design. You can be a retailer, you can be, a label, you can be a multi-brand. It doesn't, you don't necessarily always have to be a designer or, an entrepreneur. There's so many areas in fashion. So yeah, have a voice. And my number two very important thing is, what value do you add to the person, to your client, to your customer? Value do you add? It's very important because some come with, these price tags, and they themselves don't know why they want to charge a particular, a particular fee. So I challenge that, and I say, yeah, but what value do you bring? Is it because it has the best fabrics, the best cut, the best this or that, or what is it exactly? So yeah, make sure whatever it is, always, under promise and over deliver. So yeah, the value add is super important. Yeah.
I think that's really good advice. I think authenticity is so, so important. And I think that social media has really played a role in authenticity. There's a lot of people out there who just do things for money. And,
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
I
They
mean, that's
promote things they don't
okay.
believe in,
No, I'm not against doing it for money. That's what I mean. If you're doing it for money,
No, yeah.
then you have to, yeah. So see, then your voice is different, right? Then you'd be a retailer, right? I mean,
Right.
that's what a lot of retailers do. So don't confuse it. Like,
No,
yeah,
sorry. I need to clarify. I meant that like there's a lot of people, for example, content creators and influencers, they may
yes,
promote something that they don't necessarily really like or use. And
right,
that
right, right.
happens, so authenticity is
Oh,
so important
yes,
to
I get
and,
it now.
I
Yes.
think transparency is also very important. I feel I've always been like a very
100%.
transparent person with people, and I feel like I've seen a lot of people, they respect that honesty
Mhm.
so much. They're more likely to trust you, even if say your product isn't something that, maybe meets their needs, and of a product that does. Being honest and open about that kind of gives you a little more respect from that person. That's what I meant. Yeah. No, I mean,
I
obviously, like,
agree.
people have to make money, and,
Of course.
fabric is expensive, so
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. I mean, unless you're
Yeah,
doing it as a hobby, it's a different story. But honestly, fashion's a
right.
very serious business. It's, the fourth largest money earner in the world. So, and yeah, yeah. So I would say even if you have a hobby and you want to turn it into, something more serious, just do your
Mhm.
due diligence and sit down and put on paper, have mentors. That's what helped me early in my career as well. Even though you could imagine in my time, there were no benchmarks, no roadmaps, nothing. Like there was a lot
Right.
of trial and error and getting heat from both sides, from Muslims, non-Muslims. It's like, but alhamdulillah, we've come a long way. Alhamdulillah, the
Yeah.
door is inshallah open to everyone now. So yeah, I'm happy about that. I'm proud of that.
And now there's so many people who can look at you and say, "Look what she's done," and you can inspire them and help them in their journey,
Inshallah.
whether you know it or not?
Inshallah, Ya Rab. Inshallah, it's all for the positive and for the good, inshallah. That's what I hope.
I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. Is there anything else that you haven't said that you would like the audience to know?
um, I think I've said a lot. Maybe I've said too much. I can't talk a lot.
No, you were awesome.
No, alhamdulillah, feel free to, if anyone needs any advice or guidance, it's really my passion to grow the next gen of, modest designers. That's why I started my academy, and we do the mentorship program. So feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy. I don't love social media, but you could still DM me and I might find a way. But I would say, please feel free to email us, info@Rabia Z or info@Modest Fashion Academy. I'm more than happy to help wherever I can. So yeah,
Thank you so much, Rabia.
it's my pleasure. Thank you, Ashley, and thank you to Alhamdulillah, this amazing new movement. I pray that it's a success for the Muslim History Month, and it's such an honor to represent it. And inshallah, that we look back and we make history together again with Sister Naz, the World Hijab group, and everyone, inshallah. All of you, all of us together as sisters.
Inshallah. Well, thank you so much. And we are going to continue our Muslim History Month next week. Thank you so much, Rabia, for talking to me. And thank you to everyone who tuned in live. And please join us next week. You'll be joined by me and I believe our lovely Shreen Mahmood to talk about humanitarian aid and development. So stay tuned and be sure to follow us on all social media channels so you know what's coming next. Assalamu alaikum.